If
One
you
one of the things that you said is when they have to repress those emotions, it actually makes the emotions more severe, and it strengthens those emotions. So the emotions that they're trying to avoid the most don't get processed, and because they're avoiding them, they get worse. So this is like from ACT therapy. Like the first step of ACT therapy is accepting your emotions. So like people think like mindfulness, for example, you just have to be like super happy and present. No, you're present and you're tuned to your emotions, but the emotions don't have to be positive. In fact, it's very helpful to process those negative emotions, and you need to feel them to process them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that ties into another core factor which drives porn addiction, which is an identity of toxic shame. The low self-esteem, self-hatred, self-aversion, constant negative self-criticism, rejection of yourself and your emotions, that also creates this opportunity or this perfect sort of void for pornography to come in and help you relieve. Um, but yeah, the way that I describe things is like when I see people who struggle with pornography, they are stuck with a mind, a series of habits, and like a way of being in the world, which in which their only available response to any kind of challenge or negative emotion is one that is self-destructive, actually increases emotional distress, and takes them in the direction of shame, isolation, and disconnection.
This kind of reminds me of like a lot of people that have dating issues. They'll bring up a question or a topic that they think their problem is, and it almost is never their problem, right? And I think that's kind of like what porn is like. Oh man, I just keep watching porn, but that's not really the problem. The problem is you have these like you've been repressing emotions for like 20, 30 years, and you're using this as a way to self-soothe. So there's like this subconscious or unconscious, like you said, refrigerator hum of anxiety, depression that comes from a variety of sources, and they just don't know how to regulate it.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that this gets into some of the big mindset shifts that I see are extremely important for people to have if they're really serious about getting this problem solved.
Go off, king.
I'm going to go off king. And one of them is that everybody gets into recovery. And this is true for a lot of changes that people try to make in their life. But specifically with pornography, they just think I need to get pornography out of my life and then my life will somehow be fine. And
Right.
what you inevitably find as you get into recovery and you get serious about figuring out why you can't solve this problem is that you don't just need to quit porn because pornography addiction and the life that you're living are the same thing. You actually need a new life altogether because it is the life that you're a part of that is opening up a space for pornography to come in as the solution, which is another big, I would say that's the first big mindset shift for people to have is that pornography, while it causes damage and has problems associated with it that are very real, the only reason that you keep returning to it is because it's doing something for you. It is
Yeah.
actually showing up in your life as a solution to a deeper problem. It is not the problem itself. It is not the driver of the car. It is just the screaming passenger. Um, and that is a big thing that people miss is they just think that porn is the problem. And they keep attacking pornography with these really ineffective strategies while neglecting everything in their life that is messed up, that is actually creating the conditions for pornography to be a problem. And the way that I framework this is that another mindset shift to understand is that pornography addiction is not a willpower deficiency disorder. No addiction is. You're not struggling with this because you have a deficiency of willpower and discipline. Funny enough, everybody that I've met who struggles with pornography can deploy their willpower and their discipline in other areas of their life to great success. So there's not a lack of willpower and discipline, but there's this mystery as to why it's not enough to solve this particular problem. And that's because there's no deficiency of willpower lying at the root. So no amount of throwing willpower at this problem is going to stop it or solve it. And conversely, what is addiction, or specifically what is pornography addiction? It is an intimacy disorder. It is a disorder and a disease of missing and broken connection throughout somebody's life. And the sort of categories that I walk people through is that there is the internal, so there's a series of broken connections within yourself. It is what you're like you were talking about, the self-rejection, the inability to sit with emotions, right? This belief that a lot of people have, that I had myself through my active addiction, that good people don't have bad feelings and bad people don't have or sorry, what is it? Good people don't have bad feelings and bad things don't happen to good people.
Mhm.
There is a broken understanding of what it means to just live a normal human life. And people do not understand that a lot of the emotions that they feel that are uncomfortable and negative are actually symptoms of health, not symptoms of dysfunction.
Mm. And there's this quote, which is the deeper the pain, the more universal, something like this. So, like
Yeah.
the things that you feel that you think that you shouldn't be feeling, or that you shouldn't be feeling, they're very, very common. Like
Mhm.
everyone feels them at some point, and yeah, the way to process them is to feel them, to sit with them, to understand them, to journal, and to kind of piece together parts of your past and realize that that's part of you. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The way
Oh,
that I
I
heard
wanted
that
I
was,
wanted to kind of punctuate what you said before. So you were saying like you think if a lot of people think if they just get rid of the porn, then it's like, oh, everything's fixed. But you were kind of hinting at positive sobriety. And that's a term you used a lot, which I,
Mhm.
I like, which is it's kind of like you everyone's heard the thing about in the Vietnam War where those veterans or those Vietnam soldiers, they were using like heroin in Vietnam, and then they came home and they came back to like a loving family and like a great social network, and like just everything kind of a good job, whatever. And they completely stopped using heroin because they didn't really need it anymore, because they solved their emotional problems, which was probably just like a lack of like peace and you know sex and other stuff. And yeah, I think a big part of recovering from addiction is, yeah, have parts of your life that are awesome. Like the other day I literally had this realization. I'm like, my life is so awesome. I was like, I get to like create videos, help people, coach, mentor, and then I get to go play fucking ultimate frisbee. And then I get to my hot girlfriend, and I get to hang out with my cool dog. It's like, I live in a place where in the winter it's like nice and warm. It's like there's so much to be grateful for. And my life's so awesome. Like I don't really the thing for me is like, because I actually Nate personally helps me. So he puts Custodio on all my laptops. He has all the passwords. He sets up my screen time. So like I pretty much 99.9% of all porn is like blocked. And that's from him like setting up these systems and stuff. And I recently got a new computer, and it's just been sitting here for like 4 days. And I checked, I was like, can I access like porn on this? And I could. And I was like, okay, turn this off. Boom. I'm gonna wait till Nate gets here. Porn is not a part of who I am and who I'm becoming, and that's just not what I want in my life. And I will make this distinction that, like, yeah, I have dealt with a lot of porn use, and I have also dealt with a lot of emotional issues. I had a crazy adolescence that I don't wish on anyone. But like recently, I actually did a lot of introspection into this, or like processing of it, and I feel like I made a huge shift. And part of it was toward the end of act therapy, there's this thing called values based living, or like creating values that you live in accordance with. And like one of the things is written on my whiteboard right now. It says, "How can I become even better so I can give even more?" So there's people out there that need our help. And if I am struggling myself, or if I'm not myself, it's going to decrease my ability to give back to other people. So that's my like kind of recurring question I ask myself: how can I become even better to give even more? It's not about me, and it never was. It's about giving back to the tribe, helping people, raising people up. Obviously, there's a boundary, but I'm trying to help the people that I can, right? The audience that I have. So yeah. Uh the other thing you hinted at was the difference between root cause and a symptom.
Mhm.
So like this is very common in dating as well. It's like people think the problem is something else rather than what it actually is. But yeah, I'm gonna let you continue. I know where you left
I think
off.
you asked me about positive sobriety
Yeah, yeah. Why
and
don't
doing
you?
that. Yeah. So to kind of close the loop on that, because it'll get perfectly blend into this topic, the porn addiction is an intimacy disorder, and it's defined by an environment and a constellation of broken connections or missing connection throughout somebody's life. So there's internal, that's where shame, trauma, family of origin wounds, all that kind of stuff comes up. Relationship with self, um, non-integrated psychology. That's where all of that comes into play. But then it also goes out into the world, into somebody's relationships. So across the board with people who struggle with pornography, I universally see that they have a deficiency of effective dating and relationship skills, and they have a deficiency in intimacy skills, meaning, and what is intimacy? Like there's a couple ways to kind of define this. There's one that people talk about in sex addiction and recovery groups to make it really simple, which is intimacy tells you what it is. Into me you see. Are you capable of communicating who you are, your personality, your emotional experience in such a way that other people see the truth of who you are? Because until that happens, you will never feel like the real you is being seen and known and loved by others. And that also runs in reverse. Until you can provide that environment and you can communicate with another person in a way that reveals the truth of who they are, so that you can be the one who is the source of that acceptance, seeing and loving and knowing, then you cannot experience meaningful, real, deep connection in your life. And people across the board lack those kind of skills. So there's a broken system of relationship and connection with friends, romantic partners. There's a massive skill deficiency as well, which obviously that's like your wheelhouse in terms of especially the external strategic elements of getting people to understand how to be successful in dating and relationships. But then there's a higher relationship, or I say deeper relationship of broken connections, which is with life itself. People lack, as you were just hitting on,
And with themselves.
and with themselves. Yeah, people lack any connection to a real sense of purpose and a transcendent sense of meaning in their life that can carry them through the inevitable tragic and painful experiences that are baked into the human experience. And we're living in a time where there's a lot of absurdity, and meaninglessness is the defining feature of being alive today. Like we have all this stuff, yet everybody's miserable. We are being killed by comfort, and people have material success, or they're struggling to find material success, but they see other people having it. But we're still sitting with this question of, we have all this stuff, what's it for? And lacking that transcendent connection to a sense of meaning and purpose, you will constantly feel a deep sense of existential loneliness, fear, and a self centered and disconnected relationship with your life, out of which you will try to control things from a place of fear and insecurity that will always lead to negative self sabotaging outcomes and a plethora of negative emotion. Um, and so connecting people with that authentic sense of purpose is by far the most powerful thing. Like I kind of hit on earlier, that until something is more important to you and is more rewarding for you to be a part of than temporarily improving your mood through these strategies of short-term mood repair and self-sabotage like pornography or video games or whatever it is, you like, until you have that, those things will always be the most motivating thing in your environment.